You've probably heard that old saying, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. But what does that really actually mean? Well, in India, the answer isn't just one simple rule. It's a powerful legal framework that's been built up piece by piece over decades. Today, we're going to break down the 3 core laws that define fair pay and see how they affect millions of us every single day.
So, let's really dig into that. What does being paid fairly even mean? Is it just about getting your salary on time, or is it about the number on the paycheck? Or maybe, is it about being paid the same as the person sitting next to you doing the exact same job? Well, legally speaking, the answer is, yeah, all of the above. It's this big idea that's been carefully put together over a very long time.
So we're going to look at this journey through 3 landmark laws. Think of them as building blocks. The first one, back in 1936, was all about just securing your paycheck. Then, in 1948, the focus shifted to setting a minimum standard. And finally, in 1976, the conversation moved to demanding equal pay. So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay, so our first building block takes us all the way back to 1936 with the Payment of Wages Act. And its goal was incredibly simple, really fundamental, to establish the very first rule of fair work, that you have to get paid, and you have to get paid on time.
Now, to get why this was such a big deal, you have to imagine what it was like back then. Before this law, it was pretty common for employers to delay payments for months or just make up all sorts of weird, unfair deductions. I mean, it left workers in a really tough spot. The 1936 Act was basically designed to say, nope, we're putting a stop to that.
And the law did 2 really smart things. First, it defined wages in a super broad way. It wasn't just your salary, it included bonuses, termination pay, pretty much everything you earn. Second, it created a very strict, closed list of things an employer could legally deduct, like fines, taxes, or court orders. If it wasn't on that official list, an employer couldn't touch your pay. Simple as that.
So really, it all boils down to 2 golden rules. Number 1, you get paid on time, and you get paid in full. And number 2, any deductions have to be totally transparent and actually allowed by the law. This was a huge first step in just protecting a worker's paycheck.
But, that brings up a pretty big question, doesn't it? Getting your money reliably is great, it's essential. But what if that paycheck is so tiny that you can't even cover your basic needs? Well, that exact problem is what led to the next major step in wage law.
And that brings us to 1948, in the Minimum Wages Act. The whole focus here shifts from the process of getting paid to the actual amount you're getting paid. This law introduced the idea of a wage floor, a baseline that no employer in certain industries could legally go below.
So what exactly is a minimum wage? Well, think of it like a safety net. The government basically sets a baseline income to make sure that a full-time worker can earn enough to cover their most basic needs, food, shelter, clothing. It's about ensuring a basic level of dignity through your work.
So how do they come up with this number? I mean, it's not just pulled out of thin air. The government puts together committees and subcommittees, bringing people in to study different jobs in different industries. These groups then give their advice on what a fair minimum wage would be. The government reviews it all, and then boom, it becomes official and employers have to pay it.
And this right here was the crucial leap forward. With the Minimum Wages Act, the whole idea of a fair wage grew up. It wasn't just about getting your money on time anymore. Now, it was about getting paid enough to actually live.
Okay, so we've secured the payment and we set a minimum value. But there was still one more massive piece of the puzzle missing: fairness between people. And that brings us to our third and final building block, the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976.
The core principle of this law is crystal clear: equal pay for equal work. It's that simple. If a man and a woman are doing the same job, or even a job that's just similar in nature, they have to be paid the same. The Act flat out prohibits any kind of pay discrimination based on gender, period.
And here's another really smart part of this law. It doesn't just say equal salary. It uses a very specific word, remuneration. This is so key because it covers the whole shebang. Your base pay, yeah, but also any allowances, benefits, or bonuses. It makes sure employers can't create a sneaky pay gap through other perks.
All right, so we've walked through 3 different laws from 3 different decades. But the thing is, they aren't just separate rules floating around. Together, they form this really powerful, cohesive framework for what a fair wage actually means in India.
So just think about how these pieces all lock together. The 1936 Act secured the payment, making sure the money actually gets into your hands. The 1948 Act set a minimum value for that payment, making sure it's enough to live on. And then the 1976 Act ensured its fairness, making sure it's equitable no matter your gender. Payment, value, and fairness. Those are the three pillars.
And that, of course, brings us to today. These laws were built for a totally different era of work. As we navigate the whole gig economy, remote work, platform-based jobs, the very idea of work is changing so fast. And it leaves us with a really critical question to chew on. What does the next evolution of a fair wage even look like? And what will the next great wage law need to protect?